your seasonal occupation. It's time to send in your application. Get to know your short-term friends you only talk to till summer ends. The best way to spend your day ain't it when you're only making $10 every 60 minutes. Let's clock out, you and me, wander around West County. Take my hand, shop and see, only get paid hourly. We can couple, I can drive.
Hello everyone, and welcome back to my channel. I know it's been a while, but I just was spending time with my family and taking time for myself to relax, actually, and it felt really good. So I decided to come back and to do another Trippie Art, since I've gotten so many comments on my last Trippie Art video that I posted last month. So for this drawing, I will be using an ultra fine point permanent marker. It has worked in my past drawings and I just decided to use it again. Before I got started, I decided to square off my paper where I wanted to draw because I didn't know whether I wanted to put it in the middle or do multiple eyes. But this time I decided to make a washi tape frame and to frame out and layer out where I wanted to put my main focus point image. So after I framed off my sketchbook, I decided to add a little pop of color to the drawing, and I decided that it was going to look cool. So I wanted to add a cool color, nothing that would clash with the green tape because I know I would hate that, and nothing that would clash with the black ink. So I decided to use a yellow sunflower seed Trippie Art marker. It was a very vibrant color and it's one of my favorite yellow markers that I have. I decided to use the thicker side because the thinner side would just take too long, and I decided instead of doing a square, I would do a rectangle. I had to move the cardboard in the back of the sketchbook because I didn't want the paper to bleed through. Since this is very thin paper, as you can see from the left side of my sketchbook, you can kind of see the drawing I did in pen. So I didn't want it to bleed through to the next page, and I just decided, since I had this piece of cardboard, I am going to put it behind my sketchbook so it doesn't bleed through. When I was deciding how to draw the eye, I decided to do a basic eyelid, just how I normally draw them. And for the eyeball, I decided to do a droopy effect, like how in normal Trippie art or hippie psychedelic art, they have dripping slime or dripping tie-dye. So I decided to take on that aspect and do this with the ultra fine thin tip marker. It was very fun to do because I just let my hand go free. And I just decided it's gonna look cool. And with the yellow, I think that the black and the yellow made it look really good together. So when I was about to color in the main point of the eye, I realized that the ultra thin marker was going to take a longer time. So I just decided to get a thin tip Sharpie and to just color that part in since it wouldn't take as long. And since it is a Sharpie and it has a thicker base, it is better to use than the ultra fine tip. At this point of my sketch, I decided to outline the entire sketch with the thicker Sharpie since I wanted the lines to be more bold and to be more seen than the thin lines would not have been. So I just decided to go over the thin lines with the thicker lines. I also decided to add little depth shadows, or little caves as I like to call them, to make it a little bit more of an eye catcher and an eye focuser, so it tells you, oh, this has depth, this has this area being more bold than the other area, or this part is 3D, or this part is 2D. So I just decided to add that into this aspect to make it a little bit more unique. So at this point of my sketch, this is where I do the lines and the eyeballs, and I didn't want them to be too thick, so I put the Sharpie down and started using the ultra thin marker. It actually looked really pretty, and I don't know if you can tell from this angle, but a lot of the lines that I did weren't straight, and I didn't really want them to be like super point up straight, but some of them were wavy, and I kind of liked that because it added also to the effect of like trippy, kind of droopy, hippie type of art. So I went over some of the lines, add a little bit more depth to tell where my sections were just for me. And I really liked it. It looked really nice, really cool. Kind of looked like an accordion to me, so I thought it was nice. Afterwards, I started adding the shadow details that I do on the eyelid that makes it look like it has a little bit more depth. I didn't want to do it with the Sharpie, and I decided to do this one as well with the ultra thin, because with the Sharpie it would either bleed or just not look right because of the way that not only the shadow would look but also the shading. So I decided to do this with the ultra thin marker, and it came out really good. So when I started to do the eye bags, I first realized that I wouldn't be able to do this thing that I call the little squiggly shadow under the eyes, because normally when I draw the eyes with a U eyeball, I can do a little shadow under the last 3 lines that I use. But since this has 2 droopy eyes on the bottom, I kind of just kept doing little like uphills, and I didn't really do the shadow because this is ink, and I didn't really want it to like have that weird little blotch in the middle at the bottom. So I just kept doing little lines and it came out good. I was just a little disappointed that I couldn't do my shadow. At this point of my drawing, I started to add dots to my drawing. I normally add dots to the eyes and the characters that I do, but mostly to this type of art style, I always add dots just to make it look really nice and to make it look a little older than it already is. For this part of my drawing, I started to decide that I wanted to make a little frame for it. It didn't have to be a perfect frame. As you can see, I'm skipping some spaces and sometimes I go back on the spaces because it messes up a little bit, but this is a drawing that I have been wanting to try with frame because I need to learn that perspectives and perfection doesn't always have to go with art. So with the corners and the borders and the frame lines, I made sure that everything was at least like straight or squiggly. Didn't really matter to me because with this sketch, I just wanted to have fun with it, and I think you can tell I wanted to have fun with that. So to spice this drawing up a little more, I decided to add a different type of technique texture and to use my 3cm white Posca pen. It actually did help because the, I guess, iris of the eye, I didn't want that part to be yellow, and I didn't want to color it in any other different color like blue, which I was thinking of, but it didn't really make sense. So I decided to get my white Posca pen and kind of color over that yellow space until it would turn a good shade of white, to which then I was just like, let's add a couple more things, and I decided to draw some little stars just to spice up pieces of the yellow, since everywhere on the yellow was mostly just the black dots and the eye bags. So I decided to add a little specks of white stars to pop up the yellow color a little bit more. So on this part of my drawing, I decided to add another marker, Cherry Pop Red, and I wanted to put it a part of the frame. It didn't have to be straight, like I said already. I just wanted to add a little pop of color. It was between Cherry Pop Red and this very nice sage blue, but I decided to do red because, I don't know, it's just the blue that I had in mind would clash with the yellow, and I think that the red just made it a little brighter, and I appreciate that because the white paper is already bright enough. So I did a couple of lines, did a couple of little runoffs of my drawing, and it actually came out really nice. It framed it well, rounded the corners, and actually did what I needed it to do. So as I always do, I make sure to sign my drawings. Even if it's in my own sketchbook, I always make sure to sign them. So just in case I may sell a piece from my store, I always have a reference picture. So they'll say, oh, can you show me the reference picture? And I show them the picture that I drew in my sketchbook. I also decided to draw little stars outside of the frame just for little details. I had to move the cardboard around sometimes because it is, I think, a 6x6 piece of cardboard, and this paper was longer than that, so I had to keep moving it up if I was going up and moving it down if I was going down, because I just didn't want it to bleed on the paper. Like, that is not what I wanted it to do. So I'm actually happy because at the end of this, it did not bleed on the paper. So yay me. So this was the final product sketch. I was very satisfied with the way it came out, and I appreciate everybody who watched this video. So make sure to like, subscribe, and see you in the next video.